Welcome back, everyone, to episode 91 of the Midnight Entrepreneur. Tyler, we are here filming on a Sunday. It's good to have you here. But before we dive into the topic, if you guys like the show, if you like listening to us talk every single Monday morning, please leave us a rating and review. We would love that. It's really all we ask for, and hopefully we can keep bringing you some valuable advice to your entrepreneurial journeys. Tyler, I feel a little bit out of practice. It's been obviously we're still filming on the right week, but I feel like it's been a bit since we filmed the last episode.
Yeah, it's a couple days past what we usually do, but you know what? We're here. We're getting it done. We're always getting it done, and you're also doing it a little bit different, where you're just kind of free balling that intro, and I think eventually you're gonna get to like a little groove where you're cruising through them. So
it is very interesting doing the new intro. I should maybe put a little bit of thought into actually what I'm gonna say, but you know, it's fun. It's fun right now seeing what comes out of my mouth, and then maybe I will get into a little groove, and then we can get more of a rhythm.
You just start talking and see what comes out.
Pretty much, yeah. I heard the saying, it was this week, and said they wouldn't say shit if their mouth was full of it. And I'm like, you know what? That's kind of a good saying. If someone that's, you can tell someone a secret, they wouldn't say shit if their mouth was full of it. Someone that can really hold on to a secret.
I'm trying to grasp what it means, but all right.
They wouldn't say, if their mouth was full of shit, they wouldn't say anything.
Why?
Because they're just loyal.
All right.
You could put a bunch of shit in that person's mouth and they're just going to take it because they're just loyal.
Good guy.
Moving on. Moving into the episode here. Tyler, what do you got for updates for us since the last time we spoke?
Yeah, I've been sick this week. It's been a little bit of a struggle. I've still been getting everything done. That's the main thing. You got to, even on those days you don't feel like doing it, you still got to put that work in. And that's what I've been trying to do, is get that work done, even if I'm not feeling well. So the daily task that I have that I did in Asana, it's been almost 6 months now, and I'm pretty sure I talked about it. So it would have been about 5-6 months ago where I said I was going to start doing it, and still continuing to do it. It does help a lot, gives me direction on what I need to do. And especially on these days that I don't feel like doing anything, it's like, okay, this is some stuff that I got to get done. Let's get that done. And then if I get that done, we can head to bed early. So yeah, been battling this cold all week and still doing that daily mundane shit.
That's my favorite thing about having those task lists or to-do lists or whatever you want to call it, is that whenever you're like, shit, I don't want to work or I don't want to do anything, you could just look at the list and resort to one of those things. I do it more so, I've been doing it this weekend, okay, stuff I need to do around the office, stuff I need to do around my house, the actual client business work I use VidLead for. But yeah, I do like having that little task. It kind of keeps you in check.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of a direction. It's like the saying, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit nothing. And same thing with the map, where it's if you don't have a destination and you don't know where you're at, you're not going to get to where you want to go. So it just helps with that direction and giving you something to do.
It's like that saying, if his mouth was full of shit, he wouldn't say it. Similar, right?
Definitely. Yeah, exact same. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. And cranking out YouTube videos as well. I'm trying to, we're coming down to the crunch time here. We got seven weeks left until the Ironman. And it's funny. I don't know if I keep saying this or if this is on the mastermind. They all blend together. But I've said it before, where it's funny now that I have so many ideas just flowing to me, where there was times where I was like, I don't know what to do. And I was always asking you, it's what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And now it's I got 4 videos I'm working on. It's man, I got too many. So it gets a little bit tough, but the grind continues.
Creativity breeds creativity. So the more you do and the more videos you make, the more ideas you're going to have. That's what people always say online anyways.
That's
fairly true.
Something that you hear a lot in books. You're frozen, I'm frozen, I'm not sure.
But
good. That's something that you hear a lot in books, where it tells you I forget which book it is, but it's every day just come up with 10 ideas, and you're just going to continually flow and flow and flow. And it's you don't just have a lack of ideas or a lack of whatever you want to call it. It's just you aren't thinking about it. If you think about it enough, you're just going to get there.
I like it. All right, to give you a little update on my end, obviously new office is coming together. First episode in the new office, so hopefully you guys, if you're watching, you enjoy these shelves behind me. Shelves need a little bit of work. I got to add a couple more things. It is crazy how much space you actually cover on these shelves. Like I went to Home Goods. I was like, I'll buy some stupid stuff to put on these shelves, and then it filled up maybe a quarter of it. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. So yeah, the shelves.
I feel like you don't want to overcrowd it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's looking good.
It's looking good now. I think one more piece up top and maybe one on the side. I don't know if you can see it, I guess, but I think
really.
kind of just one piece in each area. Yeah, if you overcrowd it, it gets to be a little bit too much. But I've got it to a good point. But after the first trip, there was like 4 things on the shelf, and I'm like, all right, well, that's just not going to cut it. So
yeah, you just throw a few things on each shelf, and then you're all set. You don't want to look too clustered, and then you got it there, and now it's a dust collector.
Yeah, and then you dust it about once every 2-3 years. It goes well.
Yeah.
But the new office is coming together pretty well. Pretty much got everything. Got to get a couple more things set up here under the desk, cable management wise. Spencer's office is just right across the way, which is exciting. We just got him a new computer on Friday, and then there's a nice little desk in there for some audio recording, some voiceover recording stuff too. So things are going well. It's pretty exciting times. Spencer's first full week editing was this week, and it went pretty well.
Nice.
I was only here for 2 of the days. Well, actually, 1 of the days because Monday was Memorial Day, but the week went well. Can't complain.
So is he going to be doing the voiceovers? Not hiring that out?
No, he is not. But it is nice if you need to record an intro or an outro or something, you can just hop in there and do it. We had to record an intro for a podcast for a client, and they came in and just read their scripts they had, and it went pretty well. So.
Is it soundproofed?
Yeah, there's a bunch of paneling and panels on the wall, and it's tucked into a little corner, so pretty sweet.
How's your office? I remember this must have been so long ago where you got into the new room, and then it was just like a massive reverb in there.
Yeah, I remember the old room I was filming in with that wooden wall. It was pretty echoey, but this room's pretty good. I mean, I got the shelves. There's carpet in here, which helps. There's a couple chairs over there. This desk is pretty big, so I think the more furniture you can get in here, the better. So yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I'm liking it. We'll see actually how it sounds after this when we edit the podcast together. Maybe it sounds like shit, but for now it's pretty good.
Nice. Does the mic pick up much of the reverb?
No, I don't think so. Not these mics. These mics barely pick up your voice if you're freaking 4 inches away. That's why I literally have this microphone in my mouth most of the time. But yeah, it doesn't pick up a ton. But if you do have like a boom mic or a lav mic or something, you're gonna get some room echo for sure.
Yeah, I noticed that with my shotgun mic.
Yeah, and you can use Adobe's AI Enhance or whatever it is. That actually helps clean up a ton of that. But don't go overboard because it will make your video sound so distorted.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed. I usually put like a 1% or 2% noise reduction on like all of my videos that I shoot with the shotgun mic or that have the audio from the shotgun mic just to eliminate some of the reverb or extra noise that it picks up. So, yeah.
Throw it in that Adobe Enhance. I'm usually at 15 to 30%, somewhere in there. It sounds pretty good. If you need it, but don't use it if you don't need it. But last update I have on my end, we're selling projects left and right. Ever since, obviously, me and Matt have been working together and going to these meetings together. It's been way better. So that's been a bonus. Hopefully we can have Fim focus more so on that stuff. But one day at a time. That's just trying to keep the heads above water right now. So don't want to rush into something where then everything gets all messed up and we can't fulfill them or whatever that looks like. But for now, I'm pretty happy with where we're at.
Could that be a mistake that you guys, or are you guys like learning from it before it happens or anticipating?
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, so I wouldn't say it's a mistake, but that's a good little teaser into what our episode's going to be about today. But we know it can happen. Last year it happened a little bit where we just had so many projects, our edits got backed up. So we're trying to avoid that a little bit more. And I think we have a pretty good workflow down now compared to what we were doing last time. So things are going a little bit smoother than they once were. So yeah, we definitely learned from that, but we're trying to avoid it.
How much do you think it'll help now that you have Spencer there to help with editing as well?
I think a lot, actually. He's helped with a couple projects, just sifting through everything. Of course, the more he does it, the quicker it's going to get. But even we just finished an esports edit, and he pretty much put together the whole edit. That was his first full-time editing. And he put together probably to the 80% mark of the video. And then I went and cleaned everything up. Obviously,
It's huge.
The stuff I added spiced it up a lot, but we
Right.
sent it over. And the client was super happy about it, texted me on the side, said, hey, I'm going to send an email, but this is awesome. Everyone in the office loved it. And it was
Great.
all of the clips that he chose. And I just had to rearrange them a little
There you
bit,
go.
add some graphics. So, yeah, I was pretty excited about that.
I feel like that's a lot of the time that he just freed up for you. That like that initial just sifting through everything. I feel like that's a huge time suck.
It is, for sure. And that's, yeah, just sifting through it and getting the footage ready and where he thinks it needs to be. Obviously, I know that I'm going to still have to make some creative decisions here and there, but just freeing up, even if it's, 4 or 5 hours a project, frees up a ton of time.
It's huge. What are you going to do with all that extra time?
Probably just golf and watch shows and
Go to
whatever.
Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. No, I've been it's been allocated towards other stuff now, which is good, but it's more so sales side and business side of things and working on the partnership with Matt. And it really just frees up more where it feels less stressful, where I don't feel like I need to work a 16-hour day, where I can work, 10, 12 hours and then go and have a real dinner, which is nice. So it's just taking a little bit of stress off of the shoulders.
Nice. That's good to hear.
So let's, Tyler, if you don't have anything else, let's dive into this week's topic. We are going to be talking about things not to do. Hopefully you can learn from some of the mistakes that we've made. We're going to be talking about the mistakes we've made, and then hopefully shortcut that process for you. Tyler and I have each put together 7 of our top mistakes. There might be some honorable mentions that come up as we go, but we have our 7 listed, so we're just going to go back and forth, taking turns and telling you the mistakes that we made, and hopefully you can avoid them as well. So, Tyler, I will throw it over to you first. What's the first mistake you want people to avoid?
I know we mentioned this a little bit last week on last week's episode where we were just it just came up in conversation, and this is somewhat how it sparked, but basically business cards. Like I never thought I was official until I had business cards, and that was like the first thing I always wanted to do was buy business cards. And honestly, whenever I had them, I don't think anyone's really ever asked me. Like I went to a couple networking events in Tampa with Eddie, and that's when a couple people would ask me like, hey, you got a business card? And it's like, nope. But other than that, I've like never been asked for a business card. I guess it depends at the same time if you're an out and social person, where like for me, a lot of my services is like done online and I don't do like a lot of networking. So it might be a little bit different in that regards, but just having a business card doesn't make you official. You also don't need hundreds or thousands of business cards, because that's what I did when I started my first business. We bought business. It wasn't really like business cards. It was like thank you cards for Nuevo that we would be able to put in with all of our orders. And then one thing that I found out in Arte was that you don't want to be making these cards. It's more about the thought, where it's like handwritten notes is like better than these pre-made cards. So we kind of learned that the hard way, I guess. And then I also did it for like a DECA presentation, and like literally probably only needed like 5 of them, but I got thousands of them. So, yeah, the business cards, they don't make you official, and they aren't going to get you a lot of clients just because you have business cards.
Gosh, I was going to say something. What was I going? Oh, yes. The total number of times that people have actually asked me, hey, do you have a business card? In the 5 years I've been doing business has to be less than 10. I can probably count on one hand the number of times where I've actually had a conversation with someone that led to, okay, I need your business card so we can talk about it later. And probably 90% of those conversations that I do hand the business card out to, we never have a conversation after that. So really, it's a very minimal game. And one thing I'd like to add, I made the same mistake as you, Tyler, where I was like, I'm going to get 1,000 business cards. And I think we talked about this last week as well, but
Yeah.
don't order a shit ton because they're giving you a discount if you get 500 more. I promise you, you're not going to need 1,000 business cards. And what actually ended up happening to me is I ordered business cards. I ordered like 1,000 of them. And then I switched my logo. And then I switched my email. And then I switched another thing. So I ended up ordering like 3 different sets of business cards in 3 years, and 500 at a time. And I probably went through 20 of them. So just order the smallest box you can. Order 50 business cards, and I promise you it will last you a while. Unless you're really going to conferences and you're like, my goal is my strategies business cards, and I'm going to hand them out, then that looks different. But if you're just getting them because you're like, oh, I'm a business, I need business cards, you need very, very few.
You know what I was thinking when you started talking is this day and age, you don't really need that business card because it's like, pull out your phone and it's like, here, grab my number or follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook, follow me here. It's just so much easier to do it that way. It's like, send me a DM, I'll get back to you, something like that. It's like, and then it's like you're already in their DMs where that connection's been made. Whereas opposed to if you hand them the business card, you may never hear from them again. Whereas if they follow you, say on Instagram, you're like, shoot me a DM, and it's like, okay, now you at least have their contact information. Like you can follow them on Instagram, then you can message them and be like, hey, really glad we met. So then you can reach out to them and be like, and then set the tone for it and be like, hey, really glad you met. Sounds like you got a great business over here. Maybe bring up one of the things that you guys talked about and what you liked about it. And I think that just gives you a way in to the door.
In the digital age now, it's so much easier to do what you're saying, Tyler, to either follow someone on a social media platform or, my favorite thing, just get the person's contacts in your contacts on your phone. Because I don't want to have a stack of other people's business cards where I got to sift through. I got to find Nancy from Woodworking LLC.
And then you get like no idea who it is because it's like you got 500 of them and it's like, who is this? Whereas like on Instagram, you got like a name to the face or everything.
Yeah. And I always like to leave notes. This is another little tip. If you are adding people to your contacts, I always leave notes in there. So I'll put their name, their number, obviously their company I put in there, their email, any information that if they give you a business card, I automatically put it in as a contact. But maybe leave some notes about where you met this person, what they were talking about, the project they were talking about, what you guys talked about, just to give you more information for when you reach out. Exactly, yeah. Their favorite color or their favorite team they mentioned or whatever that might be.
Yeah, I do like that. So that's my first one. What do you got on your list?
Yes, moral of the story, you don't need a ton of business cards. First on my list here is retail versus service. The first business I started, and I know I've talked about this on the show for the 91 episodes we've done it periodically, but the first business I started was a retail clothing company, and I don't know why I decided to start that. Couple things I wanted to go over here. The first is being retail. Personally, this is my opinion, and Tyler, you can tell me yours is. I think retail is harder to make successful and to grow than it is a service-based business. Maybe long-term it's easier, but I think service-based businesses are much easier to get off the ground. Would you agree?
Yeah, in terms of getting off the ground, because there's going to be typically less overhead expenses.
Yep.
Because, say for me, all I really needed was a laptop. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I don't really need anything. Whereas for Nuevo, I needed a whole bunch of products. There are other ways that you could go around it where it's like print on demand or what was it? Pre-order. So they can pre-order it and then it's like, okay, maybe once we hit like 100, we'll buy them. So it's like you get the money up front. So there are ways around it. But for the most part, retail businesses, it costs a lot. There's a lot more overheads, which is harder to get started.
And so the margins are smaller, for sure.
True. Yeah. Because the only margin that you really have with services is your time.
Exactly. And depending on the service, obviously, if you're doing a quick service where you're, painting the trim work of only doors, that's a pretty niche thing, or whatever that looks like. But
cutting grass.
A lot of services, the margins are way higher. Where Tyler can sell an SEO package for $1,500, whatever that looks like, and all he needs is his time. It might take him a couple hours. So that's where the real benefit of a service-based business is. We're not talking you out of a retail business, but Tyler and I have both started one, and they are difficult. So if you're going to do that, make sure you have a good plan, but also make sure it's something that you really love, because I think the issue me and Tyler ran into is that I didn't really love selling clothing. I mean, I would wear $7 white t-shirts from Target and I was trying to sell $25 shirts and, $50 sweatshirts. Like that's just
About the brand.
Exactly. And it's like, I would not buy this, so why would I expect other people to buy it? Whereas Tyler, I don't think Tyler was in love with watches or in love with, not watches, wallets, and in love with watch rolls. You might be in love with watches. So it's a lot harder to do that if you don't actually love what you're doing. So that would be my advice, is that retail's kind of hard. Think about a service-based business, but if you're going into retail, just make sure it's something that you really enjoy doing.
I will say that I do believe that retail businesses, those are typically the biggest businesses out there. And I guess because like Apple, Amazon's kind of a retail business, Microsoft, a lot of these businesses that do sell, but it comes back to brand, like Nike as well. It comes back to brand. They built a massive brand, and I feel like that's where you're able to build a brand more so around like having like retail, and like people will flock towards it because of what it stands for and the beliefs, vision, whatever it might be. So I think that's like one thing that I see from retail versus service-based businesses. So that's my thoughts.
And you mentioned those companies, Apple, Microsoft, maybe not as much Nike, but they have created their own product. So if you do start a retail company and you have a great idea for a product that's custom, you can't get it anywhere else in the world, awesome. You're probably going to see a lot more success than just selling something that, like a shirt company or a wallet. Like there's millions of wallets out there, right? What makes yours different? But if you can come up with a new product that has been seen on the market and it fixes a specific problem, you're going to see more success, I believe. I haven't started something like that, but I can imagine it would go over that way.
I agree with that.
So,
and then
Tyler, what do you got for number 2?
So a website's nice to have, but just because you have a website, it doesn't mean that millions of people are going to see it, millions of people are going to buy from you, millions of people are going to be visiting it. It's nice to have, but just because you have it, it doesn't really make you, people aren't going to be flocking there. And that's what I always really thought, I guess you could say, is once I have a website, people are going to be like flocking towards the website and everyone's going to be filling it out, the forms, and asking for my services. And that's really not the case. And I think that was one thing that I thought with Nuevo. It's like, we're going to set up a website. We're going to have some ads. We're going to send the ads to our website. People are going to buy. And it's just like so much more in depth than that as well, where you got to like properly send them to the right page. You got to create like this funnel. You got to like make sure like what's the click-through rate, what's the bounce rate, and like figure out all these different metrics with the website. So the website is nice to have, similar with the business card. It doesn't make you official, and millions of people aren't going to come to you and buy from you right once you launch your website. That's not really how it works, but it's nice to have just because like you can direct people there and show people like what you do.
Someone told me last year, actually in the VBA when I was going through that mentorship program, is that you should not really put that much effort into your website if your business is not making at least $100,000 a year. Whereas we're not saying don't have a website. You can put together a website, but it doesn't have to be a website like Apple's. If you go to Apple's website, it's very flashy. It looks cool when you're scrolling through it. There's a bunch of stuff moving around the screen. You do not have to put that much effort into a local pressure washing business, going back to pressure washing from last week. But of course, it's nice to have. It's a good place where people can find you online, but do not put too much thought into it. I made the same exact mistake where I think I took 2 or 3 weeks to build my website, and then 6 months down the road, I was like, okay, I want to change this. So it's not that big of a deal. Especially like Tyler said, you think millions of people are going to come to the website. That's not true unless you really have a strategy to get people there. I think in the 5 years that I've had my website, maybe 10 people a year actually fill out a form that are looking for video. Everything else, people either email you or call or whatever that looks like. So again, don't put too many resources into your website early on. I really like that one.
Sounds like we need a little bit of a marketing strategy for you to drive people there. But yeah, I always struggle with that as well, where I was like, I can't start my business until I have my website up. I can't have a business until that. So it's like, I would always put what's it called? Like, an excuse, I guess you could say. It's like, I can't start a business until I have a website. And that can be farther from the truth. So I guess that's kind of the main point I want to make.
In a lot of the jobs, and maybe this is just my specific industry, but a lot of the jobs that I see, a ton of referrals. People will say, oh, hey, who are you using? Oh, we use so-and-so. Okay, so then they use them. Or I've seen a lot of posts on Facebook where people say, hey, does anyone have any good recommendations for a concrete company? Okay, then you get recommended on there. Or it's who you know, where, hey, I know my uncle just got his driveway done, so I'll shoot him a text, who did you use? He sends me his contact, and you go from there. So websites, of course, they're important, but there are a ton of other ways that people can find you. And you might think your website looks super flashy and awesome, but when people do go to your website, they're just looking for the information you're looking for. They're not there like, well, do they have a good website? They want to know, okay, what do they do? Does it look good? Where can I contact them? They're not putting as much thought into your website as you are.
Yeah. So don't make it a hitch. I think that's the word I was looking for previously.
Hiccup.
What's yours?
A hiccup. Number 2 for me is finances. When I first started my business, I was making the mistake of not really tracking what was going on for my expenses, for my revenue. I wasn't saving a ton of money because I didn't realize that I had to pay taxes on the end of this. So I think when you start a business, if you can get on top of just tracking everything you have financially, you're going to thank yourself down the road. Because if you have to go back and do it, and you have to go back 4, 5, 6 months, and you're like, well, what was this expense for? And well, who was this check from? That's one of the first things I would do if I was to restart it all, is I would make sure here's my documents, or here's my workflow or process for actually tracking my finances from the beginning.
So it's funny you say this, because right now I don't have many expenses, but this morning I actually did like my monthly expenses, and I just kind of go through, gather up all my receipts, and just log everything into an Excel spreadsheet. Is there like a system that you really had when you did this or didn't do this, and you just do it like at the end of the year? Or how would you like go about this?
So that's what I'm doing now. I do something similar to what you do, where I'll just go through. I try to do it weekly, but it doesn't happen weekly. So it's usually monthly, where I go through and make sure everything's in there. But before, what I was doing is literally nothing. I would just do a check, and then at the end of the year, I'd have to go back, and I'm like, okay, well, how much money did I make? I don't know. Let's see how much money I put in my bank account. And then I would look at my expenses. I'm like, okay, well, I'm spending stuff. I could see in my bank statement, so I'm spending stuff, but I didn't have a QuickBooks to track it, to tell me, okay, this is a software, this is gear, whatever that looks like. So I was, just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. Didn't really know. Didn't realize that, the first year I didn't make money, so I didn't have to pay taxes. But eventually you get to the point where you're going to have to set aside some of that income that you're getting, because you're going to have to pay tax on it. So those are things I learned a little bit later than I wish I had. Fortunately, it didn't bite me in the butt too big. I didn't run into any big financial issues. But once I did start tracking it, my life was much easier.
I know I did this at the end of last year, but I was like in profit. And I was like, I don't want to be in profit. Let me spend all my money. And then that's why I have this new monitor. So is that something that you would do, or do you do it now?
Did
you do it then?
I can't recall a specific time where I did something like that, but
do you think it's smart that I did it?
I think it can be, and I think it can't be. If you're doing it just because you don't want to profit, whatever. But if you're doing it because you're like, well, I do really want this new thing for the business. Like if you're like, I do need a new monitor, and then the end of the year comes, you're like, okay, this is the perfect time to get it. If I was like, I really need a new camera, I'm just going to wait till the end of the year to see what I can cover or what offsets it, then great. But if you get to the end of the year and you have profit and you're like, I got to spend all this profit. Well, no, just pay a small tax on your profit and then keep that cash, right? So I think it can go one of two ways. If there is something that you're like, I've been waiting to get this, or I think I need this, or this would help the business, awesome. But if you're doing it just to do it, then maybe not.
Gotcha. I know I put one of my goals down when I hit a certain mark to buy an iPad. So maybe at the end of this year I'll do that. I don't know. I
There you
forget what my my quote unquote goal was for that to get the iPad, but I don't know. I just feel like I don't need it. I've heard people like really like the iPads, like the freedom, like how easy it is to transfer it around and use it, and so I don't know.
I
don't know if I'd use
would,
it.
as an iPad owner myself, I would make sure you have a use case for it, because I bought one and I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, people love it. It's super easy to carry around. I never used mine.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I think I just saw like Alex Hormozy using his and how he just like writes and journals and draws and shit. I'm like, that would be so fun. That would be just like the convenience of it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's small. If you do a lot of writing, I mean, I have the Magic Keyboard that attaches to it, so it's kind of nice. It is like a small computer, but I prefer sitting at a desktop where I can actually do stuff,
Right.
and especially video editing.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really do that on an iPad. So there are some jobs and professions I think it's very applicable to, but yeah, just make sure like have an idea of what you're going to use it for,
Okay, cool.
or just buy it just to rip through that profit. Either way.
Yeah, I don't want to have any profit at the end of the year. Screw that.
There you go. All right, what do you got? Number 3, Tyler.
Start small and find product market fit. Basically, don't buy a massive amount of quantity of products. And this goes back to your retail discussion, because that's what Riley and I did, where when we first started in Weibo, it's like, yeah, we're going to be selling through this stuff like hotcakes, and we need a whole bunch of boxes. We need a whole bunch of wallets and a whole bunch of all this extra stuff that we ended up buying that is now sitting collecting dust. And it's like, that was a bad decision, because what we ended up finding out was there was a really hot wallet that everyone was searching for, everyone wanted. And then we ended up selling through that. And honestly, that was the one product that we somewhat talked about. And this is on me, because I didn't want to just have like a one product website, just because I think it looks like weird. And I wanted to have multiple products. So if we would have just stuck with that one product, we probably would be doing a little bit more decently than what we're currently doing. And we would have been able to like churn through that. And then it's like, okay, we bought 50 the first time, we sold them out. We sold them out in say like 3 months. Okay, now let's place a bigger order. Now we can go up to slowly move up the scale. Let's go 100 this time. And then it's like slowly work our way up. And if we would have done that originally, where we say tested that product out to see if that actually works, or if there's actually a market for it, people actually want this, it would have been a lot better for us, because we wouldn't have a whole bunch of products collecting dust right now.
And that is a fantastic point. It actually kind of ties into one of my mistakes as well. So maybe I'll talk about that one too, and we'll tie them together. But what I have as number 5 here on my list is to test and learn. You can plan as much as you want to and come up with this grand plan. And hey, here are the 5 products we're going to sell. But you're going to be much more successful if you start small, like Tyler said, and then you take that data that you get. And if you know, okay, this product is just flying off the shelves, whereas these ones suck, well, don't buy more of the ones that suck. Just double down on the ones that you're really selling. So that's where it is nice when you actually test and learn. And that goes for anything, not just selling products. If I'm selling a service and everybody keeps buying the social media service, but they're not buying the documentary service, okay, well, maybe people don't want the documentary service, so I can double down on the social media marketing. Or one big thing is organic content. I see a lot of companies do this, where they'll post organic content to see what hits and see what people are resonating with. And then once they see that, they'll start doing more content like that. So instead of creating 500 videos about this thing that you don't know is going to work, create 5. If it works, awesome, double down. If it doesn't, move on to the next thing. So it is nice to test and learn and actually take that data you get, instead of, yeah, let's start huge, let's buy a ton of stuff and just see what happens.
Yeah, it would have been, because what they do tell you before you do get into it is to find like a product and then like have it actually be like a drop ship. And then it's like you can actually go through that, and that's how you actually test it out to see if there's actually product market fit, where we kind of skip that step. And it's like, okay, let's just get all these products and we'll do our own testing before we actually test it. So yeah, Do you have like an example when you were like testing and learning and maybe not testing and learning?
If we go back to the clothing company I had, I remember buying sometime a size issue. So if I would buy a bunch of like double XL shirts or a bunch of small shirts, well, not many people were buying those. So I probably
Yep.
should have done more of a pyramid where, the smalls
Yep.
and double XLs you're buying less of, the mediums and larges you're buying more, the extra large you're buying maybe the most, whatever that looks like. But figure out, go back to your target demo. What do they actually want? Well, I'm probably not selling to, women that have small shirts, right? So I can buy less of those. But maybe I'm selling to men that wear large and extra large, so you double down on that. Whereas when I was going through it, I'm like, okay, let's just buy, 100 of each size. Okay, that's stupid. Why would you do that? So that's probably the most glaring one that's popped up. But yeah, you definitely want to test and learn and get that product market fit.
What it kind of seems like we're saying is don't go too all in at the start and take your time building it up. Because I was actually thinking about it this morning where there's like certain parties where I think they slowly start out as something small and then they slowly build up. So it's like, okay, we're going to start out with, say, a couple hundred people. And then if we do really well, we'll move it up to, say, 400 people and then slowly build up, not go straight. Like I think I really struggle with this where it's like, I want to have the best. I want to be the best. And it's like, I want to have everything there. But I think the smarter way is to like start small and then slowly expand it.
A good example for this would be a stand-up comedian. Stand-up comedians start in comedy clubs selling 50 tickets, selling 100 tickets. That's where they're working on their material to see if the jokes work. They're not going into Madison Square Garden with 20,000 people and trying new jokes to see if people are going to laugh or not. They're testing those out in comedy clubs. They're doing them out in small theaters. And then once they have their act dialed in, that's when they go to these giant venues. So I think that's a pretty good example to tie to it.
Yeah, I do like that.
All right, so we've done 3 each, Tyler. What do you got for the 4th one on your list?
One thing that I struggled with that, honestly, I learned right after my first call was to not give a quote on your initial call with a potential client or discovery call. Basically, I think it makes you seem a little unprepared at the same time. And it's like you're just pulling a number out of your ass and you're not actually putting thought into it. It's like, oh, yeah, that's going to be $4,000. It's like, how did you come up with that? Yeah, exactly. So it's like you're just pulling that out of your ass. And I think it eliminates the potential for opportunities to like give them other options in the future because it's like, oh, yeah, perfect. Like, this is what you're looking for. Okay, I'll get back to you with a couple different options. And then this is what I think you're going to like. So it does eliminate that because it's like, okay, here's this number and this is exactly what you get, where it just kind of eliminates everything else. And at the same time, they might just close you out right away because it's like, oh, he gave me the number. That's exactly what I wanted. And it's like too high, too low, not what I'm looking for. It just closes the door right there. Whereas like, okay, I'll get back to you. I'll let you know. It still has the door open, still has potential to actually close the client. So that's what I learned, honestly, after my first call. I was like, I don't know why I said that. And I just kind of panicked.
It turns it into a
$3,000 to $4,000.
Yeah, it turns into a coin flip simulator because you're going to say the number and they like it or love it, right? But if you can go back and you say, okay, we got to put the numbers together and see what it will actually cost, then you see more like, oh, so there is some thought process behind this, that, the other thing. And again, this does pertain to service-based businesses a lot of times. If someone's like, hey, how much is this pair of shoes? You can't go be like, well, let me think about it. I'll let you know tomorrow how much the shoes are, right? Most retail products, you kind of have a price especially if you have like a brick and mortar. Most times you could tell. But service-based businesses like what me and Tyler are doing, yeah, try not to just throw out numbers out of your ass. At least put some thought behind it, or at least make it seem like you're putting some thought behind it.
Did you ever do that when you were starting out? Just like throw out numbers?
Oh, all the time. All the time. I was like $300. And then it's just a yes or no, right? It's just a yes or no. The nice part about not saying it is you can come back and say, hey, we can do this for X price, but we can also do this and this for this price. One thing that Matt and I have been doing with our estimates is we send multiple estimates where they give us a bunch of ideas of what they want. So they're like, oh, we want photos and we want lifestyle video and maybe some drone footage would be good, and then we can do some review videos. We just have them spew all of their ideas, and then we'll put together estimates. We say, hey, here's everything you talked about. Here's 4 estimates for each one of them. Let us know if you want to move forward with any of them. This just happened with a client on Friday. They said, hey, can we pick and choose from these, or how does this work? And we pretty much said, yeah, whatever you guys want to do, we can adjust any of them. But this just kind of shows you this is a base starting point. So that's what's nice about not throwing a number out right away. If you were to say it's $4,000, okay, well, what's $4,000? Just what we talked about, everything we talked about. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because they don't even know what's included in that number. It's like, one, where'd you get that number from? And 2, what's included?
And an honorable mention I'll throw in there is just work from people's budgets if possible. See if they'll give you a budget or a budget range, and then you really have a better idea. And that is going to go into one of mine down the road. Actually, maybe I'll go into that now since it's a great transition. But think big. I made the mistake starting off in my business where I didn't think very big. And if you think about small clients, those are the clients you're going to get. But if you think about big clients, you're more likely to attract those big clients. So I made this mistake where, I'm like, oh my gosh, $200, that's so much money to me. To me, it was so much money. But to a lot of these companies, they have thousands and thousands of dollars for marketing. So you need to think how they're thinking, not how you're thinking. Me being a broke kid that just started a business, $200, oh my goodness. So I'm thinking small. So I did make that mistake. In the beginning, think big, right? I just had a conversation with a guy at the bar on Friday night, and he just started this company, and I was questioning him about it, and I actually wrote the topic. We can maybe talk about that next week, Tyler. But he just started this company, and he's selling a product to oil companies, and he's making, I think they're $1,000 per product, and he's selling like 150, 300 of them at a time. So it's just absurd where he's 22 years old, and that's the power of thinking big. He knows if I can get with these giant oil companies and in North Dakota and Texas and Canada, I can make a shit ton of money. Or instead of, hopefully I can get my local oil companies, that's a different mindset. So I'd say that's something, definitely a mistake I definitely made, is I was thinking way too small. Did that happen to you at all, Tyler?
One thing I would say or just add is there's a really good book called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz, I believe. Really good book. For me, I would say think small because what's his name? Simon Squibb. Yep. I know you started listening to him a little bit. He's been talking about how he started his business, and he was like thinking really big, trying to go after these massive clients. Whereas for me, I feel like I'm just going like really small, local type of businesses where they don't have those massive budgets that they would be willing to allocate towards me or towards their marketing efforts. So I do feel like I am limiting myself because I'm not thinking very big, and I'm not like, why would they want to work with me? Like, why would Apple want to work with me? Why would Microsoft want to work with me? So it's like trying to not think that, I guess. And it's like, I feel like I'm just kind of thinking on my level, and it's like, who would want to work with me? And it's like these smaller end clients.
The one thing I've learned is that there are people out there that will pay what you want to get paid. You might be selling things for $1,000 for your service right now. I guarantee there are people out there that will pay you $30,000. But you have to position yourself correctly to those people and actually know and have a strategy on, okay, this is who we work with. These are the people we want to land. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be just because you think big means automatically now you're getting big clients, but it's going to open up the door for those big clients. In my experience, at least.
Yeah, makes sense.
And that's something working with Matt too that I've learned is when I first started working with him, he's selling big projects, $25,000, $30,000. I'm like, how is he selling these? I'm like, how is he selling $30,000 projects? And it's the power of thinking big. He doesn't have that limiting mindset of, if I send them a $3,000 quote to do a podcast, are they going to be like, oh my gosh, that's too much? Well, who cares if they do? Send your thing and say, okay, it's $25,000 if you want 15 podcast episodes. If you do that enough, you're going to start pitching it to the people that are going to pay you that much money. So that is something I've learned over the last little bit, and it has been beneficial. So think big from the beginning. There we go.
I do like that one.
All right, Tyler, what do you got for number 5? Maybe I think it is.
Don't think get rich quick. That's one thing that I think Riley. Yeah, I think that's one thing that Riley and I really thought about. The hot term going around was drop shipping, and we're like, this is going to be really easy. We're going to get in. We're going to get rich. We're going to set up a website. We're going to run some ads. We're going to get rich, and then we'll be able to retire within 2 years. And that's really not the case. Rarely ever is it. You really got to be putting in the work consistently daily. And you got to think like it's a long-term play, and you're going to be willing to stick with it for a long period of time, because rarely ever is it get rich quick. And I feel like a lot of people that maybe like influenced our decision into doing that, that's what they were doing or saying. Like, this is a great way to get rich quick. And I think if you ever do hear that, probably not.
Run for the hills.
Exactly. Go the other way, or just do the opposite of whatever they're saying, because whatever they're saying is not the truth.
It's a fantastic transition into literally what the next one was going to be for me, is realistic goals. You have to have realistic goals, or when I started, I fell into the same trap. And you do have to have a little bit of that blind confidence that I'm going to start this business and I'm going to get rich and it's going to get big. That's great. Have those aspirations, but have realistic goals that 99% of the time, nobody becomes a millionaire overnight. Of course, there are instances where you see people go viral and then next thing you know, they're famous and they're making a bunch of money, but don't bank on that. If you have these realistic goals, everything takes time. It usually takes way more time than you think it's going to. I remember when I started my video business, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make a shit ton of money. I'm going to make $100,000 a year. I'm going to have this big team. Well, I'm 5 years in now, and I finally just moved into an office space. Like, I thought I was going to have this big studio in a year, 2 years, right? So just have those realistic goals. Be honest with yourself. It's not bad. If you're successful in 10 years compared to successful in 1 year, what's the difference? The whole point of it is to build something that's successful and then enjoy the process along the way. So setting realistic goals, really important. And the rich part of that is a big aspect of that, where don't think I'm going to get rich tomorrow, because it's probably not going to happen. But you can get rich eventually. You can get rich eventually.
Yeah. I believe it's more so like think smaller in the short term and then think big in the long term.
Yeah.
Because you can accomplish and achieve so much over, say, 5-10 years. But like we all often say, I want to create the next Nike within this year. So it's like, you can't really do that, to be honest, because Nike was the longest overnight success story. Or there's so many of those quote unquote overnight success stories where it's like this overnight success story took 30 years. So it's like, it takes a long time to build it up. So it's like, think smaller in the short term, where you can actually take those daily steps. And it's like, okay, I want to be able to get this done, where it's like simple, achievable stuff, but it's moving the needle towards that massive goal of whatever it might be, like become the next Nike, become the next Apple, whatever it might be.
My advice to the people listening, one overnight success, you could say, that felt like it popped out of nowhere was Airbnb. And Airbnb, one thing led to another. Next thing you know, there's Airbnbs all over the country. And that felt kind of like, oh, where did this company come from? Read the book, The Airbnb Story, and you will actually see the story of how long it took those guys to turn Airbnb into a quote-unquote overnight success. There's so much that actually went into the back end of it. They're in so many different offices. I think I remember one story on how they were having people just like work in the hallways, and they were sitting on the floor or sitting on the stairs. So these quote-unquote overnight successes you're seeing, they're not really overnight successes. So just have those realistic goals when you do go into business. But like Tyler said, have those big lofty ambitions of, hey, think big. What do I want to happen in 10 years? But just know you're not going to build Nike in 1 year. It's going to be, if you do, you're a fucking whiz kid. But
it's a good book. Yeah. It's like really interesting hearing all their stories where it's like they move back, they split up. Like this guy wants to he's an engineer and he has a family to provide for, and moving back, living in an apartments and bootstrapping. Like, I think Airbnb started around 2008. So it's
Yeah.
like that overnight success. I feel like it blew up around 2015 to 2018 time range. So it's
7
like,
years you
that's-
didn't see. Yeah.
Exactly.
But
That's the
when it
shit
did blow
that-
up, it's like, oh my gosh, this company came out of nowhere. It's like, no, these guys have
Yep.
been doing this for 7 years.
Yep. Exactly. So
Tyler, what do you got for number 6?
taking advice from people that aren't where you want to be, I think just it's tough not listening to a lot of people, but if they aren't where you want to be or they've never been there, it's hard for them to give you advice on, because they have a different perspective on life as well. Because it's like how are you going to teach me or guide me or mentor me into getting to my goals that are bigger than wherever you've been? So it's like you got to manage who you're taking advice from and find and listen to your mentors appropriately.
That is a fantastic mistake. Well, fantastic mistake. I don't know if that's the way you'd word that, but definitely something that I had to learn as well. One thing that I always think to myself is don't take criticism from somebody you wouldn't take advice from. I think those kind of go hand in hand where, if someone's bashing what you're doing in business or they're telling you how to do something, would you take advice from that person if they were giving you advice? If the answer is no, then who cares how they're criticizing you? So I think those go hand in hand. I have a fantastic story that ties to that, Tyler, on taking advice from people that aren't where you are or where you want to be. I remember when I was starting my video production company, I had a phone call with a client that wanted some video, and my dad was in the room. And love him to death, but he just, he's not business minded. He's never ran a business. He's a teacher, a high school teacher, so I understand that. But I told them the price, and I think the price was $1,000 or $1,500 or something at that point. And he couldn't believe it. He's like, "Why? Oh, that's so much money." He's like, "Why wouldn't you just do a video every single day for $200?" He's like, "You make so much money doing that." Whereas I can't take that advice because he has no idea that one video every single day for $200 is impossible. So that's just a good example I always use in this instance, is that you can't take advice from people that aren't where you want to be, or they're not in the same industry, or they don't really have the expertise to be giving you that kind of advice. So I like that one.
Yep. Be careful who you take advice from.
Be very, very careful. Number 6 for me, I have the power of relationships. It's a very heavy cliche that people use, is your net worth is your network. And as much as I think it is a corny saying and it's lame, it is 100% true. The power of the relationships that you have are going to open up so many doors for you, so many opportunities for you. Just for you as an example, Tyler, how many times has your current clients you have, they sell for you, or Eddie sends you somebody from Florida, right? And if you didn't know Eddie, you'd never have those conversations. So the power of relationships, I know when I started my business, I'm going to do everything by myself and I'm become a millionaire by myself. And then I realized the more resources and people you know is going to help you a ton. In one, being valuable and providing value to people. One example I use is the Beyond Meat project. They just reached out to me on Friday. They said, "Hey, we need a shooter. We need a video shooter in Oklahoma next Tuesday. Can you help us out?" And me having this network of all of these different videographers around the country, I'm providing value to Beyond Meat, and I'm really helping them out for this project. So that is building the relationship between me and that client. So that's just one example, but you can look all over at these different examples that the more people you know, the more resources you have is going to be super beneficial.
You're referring them to someone else again?
Yeah, they can't fly me out there, and I'm busy anyway, so I couldn't do it. But I said, yeah, I know this guy. He's in OKC. It'll be a 2-hour drive. He can help you out. So that
Hopefully he's good this time.
Yeah, this guy is good. This guy I really trust. He does like Hollywood productions. He drives to LA all the time, and so I trust him. But yeah, it's just good having that community of video people that I can say, "Hey, can you shoot this thing for me?" Yeah. And then to me, I look like this grand master where I can just move people around the country and get you whoever you need. Where really it's just a list of people I have and just search for their city.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, relationships are huge. I know Eddie's always going to those networking events, and he literally knows like everyone in Tampa. Like if you're entrepreneur, business owner, or really like he knows like everyone. He's like, oh, I got the perfect connection for you. He's like, oh, like he knows so many people, and he's so well connected. It just blows my mind. And yeah, he's referred me so many potential business opportunities. And like one time he referred me someone who ended up referring me someone that I did the website for. So yeah, it's like your network is huge. And that kind of plays into my last one, which is partnerships. And maybe you can speak on a little bit with you and Matt and how your partnership works. But don't just go into partnerships with someone because you just wanted to start a business or they're your friend or their family or whatever it is. You really want to make sure that you each have like a defined role within the business, and you each have like a set of skills that's going to be complementary to each other. Where I think with Riley and I, the issue we ran into is I think we both had very similar skill sets where we were both like marketing background. Whereas like if you have someone that's say financial or engineering or marketing, whatever it might be, where it's like, you focus on that, I'll focus on this. We'll combine our efforts and we'll each pair our skill sets together to create one massive thing. Whereas like with Riley and I, it was like, okay, we both have the same skill set. We're both want to do this stuff. And it's like, okay, what are we going to do? Who's going to be the one that, what's the word? Compromises and does the other stuff that is not their specialty. So that was one thing that kind of struggled with us. And then same thing with like back when I was in college, I had the DECA presentation and business idea that I came up with. And one of the guys in DECA was just like, I went up to him because I didn't really want to do it by myself. So I was like, hey, I have this business idea. Are you interested? And he's like, yeah. So I was just like, we didn't really have any, like, I know that's a little bit different, but it was like we were creating like a business. And for that, it was just like, are you interested? Yes. Cool. You're in. So it wasn't like quote unquote interview type of style or like figuring out what would be like beneficial or like what role he's going to play versus me. So I think just trying to plan that out and manage your partnerships well. So I guess like it seems like you and Matt are rolling really well, and it seems like you guys have your roles defined well. How does that like function with you guys?
I'll get into that, but before I wanted to answer, that's fantastic points made from you, Tyler. I think you have to look at it as a strategic partnership. Go into it knowing instead of like you said with your DECA where you say, hey, you want to do this? Yeah, cool, you're in, right? That's just because you're around type partnership. Go into it strategically thinking, okay, do I need someone that has financial backers? Like I need money to fund this project. So your partner's gonna be someone that has money. Or maybe you're really good at the money side, but you need somebody operational that can actually run it because you don't want to actually run it. Or you partner with someone marketing because you know nothing about marketing. Find those strategic partnerships where you two working together is going to help grow the business rather than just doing it because it's your friend or doing it because it's a family member. See how much value you can get out of your partner, and it goes both ways. They're supposed to get value out of you as well. Going into mine and Matt's partnership, I think it really helps because one, we're in the same industry, going for the same goal. And two, he has a ton of experience. And that's where I saw the benefit in the partnership is that his sales experience is just way more than mine was. He's been doing this for, 5 years longer than I have. So him having that knowledge on how to sell bigger projects and how to maintain these relationships with clients and how to get the most out of these clients really is the benefit on my end. And I think the benefit on his end is that I can really amplify the actual production side of things. Not saying that Matt is bad at shooting or bad at editing. I think he's fantastic, but I really focus on making sure these videos look really good. Whereas some other people might cut corners here and there, but I want it to look like it's coming from New York or LA or whatever that looks like. Am I always at that level? Probably not. Bangladesh, yeah. Am I always at that level? No, but I want to really put in that craft. So I think that's where Matt gets his benefit is that I'm amplifying the production side, and I get my benefit from the sales side and his experience. So,
yeah. So it really does seem like you guys have your roles defined where he's like, you focus on sales, I'll focus on the movies and videos and creating high quality products.
Yeah, for sure. I really focus on all the productions and the editing. We're both working on the actual business growth side of things where we're coming up with workflows and systems where I'm maybe more so involved in that, where I say, hey, this is how we're going to do it. And then he's really focusing on the pre-production, a lot of client communication and the sales. And that's a great transition into my last mistake here. When I started in business and just until probably the last year or two, I really wasn't focused on sales. That's a big mistake I made. Sales is the lifeblood of your business. If you can't sell, then you are not going to be able to make it in business because how are you going to have revenue? So one of the biggest things early on that I would focus on business is really figure out your sales game. How are you going to actually get people to buy your product or service? I waited way too long to do that. Keep my head above water just because, word of mouth. But if you can focus on sales and figure out a system, you're going to be super successful. I think Alex Hormozy always says, if you can sell, you always have a chance, or you can always, you're always in the game if you can sell, or maybe it was Gary Vee. I can't remember, but sales is, it's a really good skill.
Do you have any advice for me? Because quite frankly, I'm not the best at selling, and I'm in that boat that you just described where it's like, you're not selling. So I'm just staying stagnant basically, where I'm not gaining any new customers. I'm not losing at the time any new customers, so I'm just kind of flatlining.
I think the sales side of things, there's two ways you can look at sales. The first aspect is where you are actually figuring out the people, how do I get in contact with this person, the first initial meeting, trying to get them to buy your stuff. And the second aspect is this.
So how do you get that initial meeting?
Well, that's harder. So, there's a plethora of different ways. I wouldn't even say I'm fantastic at it either. I think one of the ways is obviously social media marketing, get your stuff out in the world so people know who you are. Another one would be more so what Eddie's doing, where it's a lot more networking, where you just have conversations with people and see if you can help them out.
Makes sense.
Those are probably the two different ways that I'd see, or, which I don't do this, or you can do some, cold calls, which makes me fucking quiver.
LinkedIn,
cold
DMs.
emails. I think outreach is a really big thing. You don't do enough of it. I definitely don't do enough of it, where the more outreach you can do. Exactly. But even those strategies where you're maybe sending videos of people's websites, just a quick screen recording, or you're sending them a selfie video and a LinkedIn message, whatever that looks like. I think the more conversations you can have, the better. And one piece of advice I'll have in sales is that, no, you're not going to call someone. They're going to buy from you right there. It's not like the Wolf of Wall Street where they cold call someone and he sells $10,000 worth of penny stocks. The goal of the sales is to have conversations with people, build value, and then maybe a year down the road, you've built up a rapport enough to sell them a project. So that's, again, like we talked about earlier, it circles back to relationships. I think the foundation of sales starts at knowing as many people as you can. The more people you know, the more people you have a potential to sell to. So, but again, take that advice with a grain of salt because I'm not fantastic at it. That's why I have Matt do it. So maybe just partner with somebody else.
Fair enough. I like it.
So that is our 14. It would be our 14 mistakes that hopefully you can learn from. You can shorten the learning curve a little bit. No business idea this week because neither of us could think of one. So unfortunately, you guys,
we didn't have that creative block.
We don't have one. So that is all right. Hopefully you guys can get through with that. We still made it to 1 hour and 4 minutes. So the business idea, that's okay. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Tyler, anything else for the people before we get out of here?
No, I think mistakes are part of the journey, and all you need to do is learn from your mistakes. If you aren't learning from your mistakes and adjusting your behaviors, you're screwed.
The quote you should say at the end of this podcast is, you either win or you learn. I don't know who says it, but I'm sure somebody says it. But yeah, totally agree. You always got to learn from those mistakes. Hopefully this podcast allowed you to shorten that learning curve of those mistakes, and maybe you cannot make some of them yourself. But with that being said, that is episode 91 of the Midnight Entrepreneur. 9 away from 100, Tyler. It's pretty exciting. If you guys really enjoyed the show, send it to a friend, somebody that's maybe getting into a business, or share it on your story, or post it wherever you want, or do whatever you want. Maybe just delete the episode off your phone. We don't care either way. We appreciate each and every one of you being here, listening to the show. Really appreciate the support. And we will see you guys next week for episode 92.
So I think that was Nelson Mandela that says, you never win or lose or whatever you said. But I don't have that quote. I have, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing anything. I'm positive that a doer makes mistakes. John Wooden.